Hi, this is Matt McClung, and I'm talking about the snare drum etude. This one is based on Scheherazade, which is a great piece for orchestra and has great percussion parts and one of the most famous snare drum parts in all of the orchestral repertoire. The third movement of Scheherazade has wonderful, wonderful snare drum writing, and it is this snare drum part that inspired this piece, and there's lots of quotes of Scheherazade. So if you don't know Scheherazade, that's the first thing you should do, is enjoy yourself, listen to the third movement, listen to the whole thing, but this material comes directly from the third movement of Scheherazade. It's a great piece, sit down and listen to it. It says right at the top of the etude, observe the sticking, particularly in bars 1 through 12. I did that. You'll notice I did that if you watch the performance, either the slow one or the fast one. I observed all the stickings, which was difficult because I've studied the snare drum part to Scheherazade. I've performed it, I've practiced it, I've played auditions on it, and I had to relearn it with this sticking. So if I had to relearn it, I insist that you do too. So go ahead, and the stickings are actually fairly sensible that they have written in, but go ahead and follow those. The very first measure is one of the trickiest parts of the whole etude, and if you play it beautifully, it's going to sound great, but it's easy to not play beautifully. So there are a couple of things you can do to help yourself out. First, I would just play the pattern without all of the 16th note triplets in there. What I mean by this is play, for instance, rest, left, right, 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 left, right, 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 right. Just make sure that is nice and steady. Left, right, 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 right. Then play a triplet on the first 8th note. Left, right, 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 right. Triplet, right, 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 right. And make sure that's nice and steady and nice and even. Then when that's good, then you add the doubles. And hopefully they'll be smooth and even. And you don't want it to sound like doubles. You don't want it to sound like but you want it to sound nice and smooth. And if you do those things, start with all 8th notes, then add the triplet, then add the doubles, that'll help you make that first and second measure really smooth and accurate. There are a few rolls in this etude. Some of them are tied and some of them are not tied. Make sure you make a distinction between those two things. If the roll is tied, you connect it to the note that's following it. If it's not tied, you lift up and there's a little bit of a space between the roll and the following note. So make sure you make that distinction in all the rolls in this etude. Another direct quote from Scheherazade is measure 11. This is the measure with the 3-stroke ruffs. And I encourage you to play it first without the ruffs and observe the stickings, and then play it with the ruffs. And once you've learned it with the ruffs, check yourself and make sure you're not slowing down, or make sure you're not inserting any space in there to get the ruff in. And how I do that, how I practice it, is I play the measure once through without the ruffs, just straight 16th notes, and then once through with the ruffs, and alternate those two things. Once with the ruffs, once without, back and forth, and make sure that the tempo is steady in both of those. I'm going to refer to Scheherazade third movement again. If you haven't listened to it, go listen to it. This piece is not a typical marchy, masculine, aggressive snare drum piece. If you listen to the movement, there's a little bit of a lilt, there's a little bit of a sway, and it's a gentle etude in general. There's very little loud stuff in this etude. There's 4 measures of fortissimo, there's a bit of a crescendo to fortissimo towards the end with the accel section, and other than that, it's almost all piano and a little bit of mezzo forte. It's a gentle etude, there's a little bit of a dance feel to it, so make sure you play it that way. Don't play it like a hardcore march. Play it with a little bit of lilt. I promise you, somebody behind the curtain judging you is going to appreciate that if you make it sound musical. That'll help a lot. And if you're confused, Scheherazade, third movement, please. Practice both metronomic sections with a metronome, i.e. practice up until the accel with the metronome on 66 or wherever you're comfortable, and practice the ending, dotted quarter equals 126, with a metronome. Obviously, when you practice playing the whole piece from beginning to end, you can't really do it with a metronome, or you have to ignore it once you get to the accel. But make sure you practice that ending with a metronome so you know where the accel ends and what the final tempo is that you're heading towards. I use the Vic Firth Atkatz sticks. They're comfortable for me, and I like the way they sound and the way they feel. I think they get a nice soft sound out of the drum, and they're big enough to get a good loud sound out of the drum as well. Have fun and good luck.